Right now, Argentinians are making $200 a month, right? So how can they? I believe that they are like the new Venezuelan people, right? It reaches a point where you cannot save anything, and if you don't have money to pay for an air ticket, you're trapped inside of the country, right?
Hey everybody, welcome to the What is Money Show. I am thrilled to have you here joining me on my mission to help shine light on the corruption of money. Now, if this is your first time listening to the What is Money Show, I strongly recommend that you go back to episodes 1 through 9 first, which lays a lot of the groundwork for many of the concepts that we explore on the show. These first 9 episodes are my series with Michael Saylor, and thousands of people have told me that this is the best podcast series they've ever heard, hands down, and that it was instrumental to their understanding of money and Bitcoin. So if you're looking to start a deep dive into the nature of money, I don't think there's any place better that you can start other than episode 1 of this show. Now, a little bit about this show and how it makes money. The What is Money Show is 100% sponsor based. So all of our revenues are derived from direct sponsorships. And I strive to be very selective about the sponsors that I work with, specifically only using sponsors that I use personally, and also choosing sponsors that have values which are well aligned to the values expressed on this show, such as freedom, education, self-sovereignty, etc. So what I'm going to do now is a few ad reads right at the top of the show, and then I'll do a few more ad reads in the middle. And I hope you'll take the time to listen to them, as again, these are hand-selected sponsors, and I think you'll like what they have to offer. Today's podcast is brought to you by In Wolf's Clothing. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times per year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that help fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. So go to wolfnyc.com to learn more about the program or apply. Again, that's Wolf NYC, WOLFNYC.com. Ariel Aguilar, welcome to the What is Money Show.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. By way of quick introduction, you are the founder of European Bitcoineta.
That's right.
Which is a Bitcoin education project. We'll talk a bit about what that is towards the end here. But today we're going to be talking about the nature of money in Argentina, kind of the nature and history of money in Argentina and how it's influenced the political sphere over the past several decades.
Yeah.
But I think it's most appropriate that we start talking about the current candidate, Javier Milei.
Yeah.
As the elections are tomorrow,
exactly,
right?
One day away from the elections, and we're going to find out the results on Monday at 3 a.m. So I will be up.
So we're recording this on October 21st, 2023. The elections are to be held tomorrow, October 22nd, 2023, and results will be issued on Monday. So this guy got a lot of people's attention, especially in Bitcoin circles. I personally saw a video clip of him. He was on a mainstream media interview, and someone was asking him, what is the platform he's running on? And one of the first things he said was central banking is a scam. I think he may have called it a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah,
in fact,
he did.
And that was shocking, to hear someone who's leading in the polls for the highest political position in Argentina, talking in such a libertarian way, a very frank libertarian way. And, just reflecting on my own time at Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017, Bitcoin was considered to be a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have major political candidates, like we have RFK in the US talking about the benefits of Bitcoin.
Even the biggest hedge funds now.
The biggest hedge funds in the world, in just a short time, right? The span of 5, 6, 7 years, it's gone from a complete joke that most people wrote off to now being a major topic of discussion. And even the primary point of this guy's political platform is to abolish the central bank, I believe. So let's just talk about Javier. Like, what are his views? It sounds like he's an actual libertarian in the classical sense. What are his views on Argentina, its economic policy, its central bank, and what does he intend to do about it?
Sure. Well, we really need to appreciate Javier Milei's proof of work, because he became a libertarian around 2014, 2013. Before that, he was like monetarist economist who worked for a large corporation in Argentina. And ever since, he's been little by little going to TV shows. At first, they were small TV shows, cable TV shows, and talking about the libertarian ideas. He presented himself as an anarcho-capitalist, right? And libertarian or liberal ideas back then in Argentina, like in 2009, they were an insult. Like if somebody said you're a liberal, classical liberal, they were like trying to disrespect you or insult you, right? So I was involved in a political party. We were trying to do a libertarian party, Partido Liberal Libertario, it was called. Javier Milei saw us, right? And he's been going to TV doing this proof of work. But if you see any video of him, you will see that he's an atypical guy. The reason I believe he got to where he is now is because he shows his passion. I mean, you could watch a debate of Javier with a socialist or with a communist. You can put it on mute. You're not hearing what they're saying, but you will say, this guy's winning the argument, right? Because he really believes what he's saying. All the other classical liberals in Argentina are like suit up and they are afraid to confront the others, right? The socialists. But Milei believes they are thieves. So if you really believe that the other person is a thief, why don't you like say to his face, right? You're stealing from me. You're a criminal, right? And the other liberals are no like, please don't steal from me, right? So he's been doing this on TV. The ratings go up like crazy. So all the TV channels want to have him. And even to this day, even though the mainstream hates him, they cannot stop talking about him. All the candidates talk about Milei. All the media talk about Milei, right? So they are giving him free press, free publicity. Milei has made the cheapest political campaign in history. He's not spending any money on ads or anything like that. So and we're one day away, and most likely he will win. We'll see. I assign like a 60% chance of him winning. Argentina has some rules that if he doesn't get 45%, let's say he gets 42%, and the second place is more than 10 points away, well, he wins. But if the second place is less than 10 points away, there's a rerun of the elections in November. And then we have to see which is the second candidate. If the second candidate is from this current government, well, I believe Milei has also a good chance of winning. If the second candidate is from the opposition party, that gets more complicated. We'll see. We have to see that.
Now, the risk, I get, because it sounds like Milei is very popular. He's leading in the polls by 10 points, as I think you said. But there is some risk. And you mentioned this election engineering that's taking place inside of Argentina.
They're desperate.
The distribution of fake ballots.
For example, in the last week, the Argentine government has proposed to people, because Argentina has a lot of subsidies for energy, for oil, even in the city, in the main city, Buenos Aires, you are paying 6 cents or 7 cents of a dollar to travel around in a bus or in a subway, when the real price should be 70 or $1, right? So in the last week, they proposed people, if they want to voluntarily take off that subsidy and pay the real price, because the argument is, if you're voting for Milei, who will take out the subsidy, why don't you voluntarily give up that right now, right? And they have TVs on the train stations, and now they put 3 prices. The current government presidential candidate price, 56 pesos. Milei price 1,100. The opposition party price 1,100, right?
Wow.
And tell you, think clearly when you vote, right? But all that is paid. People paid in taxes and inflation.
Right.
So
it's they're preying on ignorance, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's interesting that they choose the price, because the price does seem to be like one of the primary things that commands attention in the world. So they're now using bus and train ticket pricing to try and paste this guy or paint this guy as a bad candidate, effectively.
Yeah.
And so this is propaganda. This is a psyop taking place through money.
The media are trying to forecast what exchange rates are going to be in the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to give you a photo later for you to overimpose.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, with current Massa, is the current government candidate, it's going to be, let's say, 1,000, the price.
Mm.
When they choose Milei, as high as possible is one of the metrics, or to the infinite, right? So they're trying, even the newspapers are, I know, paid by the government. They get a lot of ads from the government. So yeah.
So when you say they're desperate, you're talking about current central government
the
insiders.
Establishment. Yeah, the current establishment.
Okay.
It's about the government, the media, the academia, right? Because in Argentina we have a lot of publicly funded colleges and schools, and yeah, some of the corporativism that is tied up with the government.
Which is basically fascism, right? State power and corporate power combined.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is another one of those cases where broken money, like when the money is a lie, you start to get the propagation of lies in media and in election campaigns in this case.
One more detail.
Yes.
Even in Argentina, we have a black market price of the dollar. We always have no problem telling that price. But in the last day, Friday, yesterday, they managed to control the media to lie about the black market rate, which we call the blue dollar. And so some people had to come up with the deep blue dollar, which is like the black market rate, the real rate, right? Because they're underreporting. They don't want people to go to elections thinking that the dollar has gone up to 1,100 or 1,200. So they say 900. But you cannot get that price anywhere, right? So yeah, even with the black market, they're lying.
And so that's like they're trying to manage it below 1,000 pesos per dollar because that's some type of psychological threshold for people.
It's up until a few months ago, 2 months ago, it was the highest denomination bill in Argentina. It's 1,000 pesos. So the highest is $1. A few months ago, they introduced the 2,000 peso note, which is $2, but it's still not widely distributed amongst the country.
Wow. And what do you, do you personally believe Javier, what he says? Do you think he's going to, you said he's pushing for dollarization, I think initially, but there are not adequate dollars in the central bank, so he'll be banking on a grant or a loan from the IMF to do this?
Milei has a two-side strategy, because on the one hand he says he wants to dollarize the economy, but also at the same time he says he's pro-monetary freedom. So he has, for example, done speeches to businessmen, and he tells them, if you want to do contracts in soybean, you can do contracts in soybean. Do you want to do in barrels of oil or in BTUs of energy? Do that, right? So he's granting people total freedom. And I believe Bitcoin will fall into that, right? But at the same time, he wants to dollarize the economy. In a certain way, Argentina's economy is already dollarized because people, all sane people, do not save in dollars. They have to save in dollars. Sorry, no, they don't save in pesos, they save in dollars. And they have to do it going through the black market. You cannot do it through official means. They only let you buy $200 per month legally.
Wow.
So imagine how many months do you have to save in order to buy a house?
Wow.
That is $100,000.
Wow.
You run out of life, right?
Yes.
So people have to go to the black market to get their dollars. And there are some calculations that say that Argentines hold like out of $10 that are outside of the United States in cash, 2 of the 10 are in Argentina. I know if it was like $200 or $300 billion in cash under the matrices, we call it.
Wow.
In Argentina. Yeah.
Wow. I want to read this tweet that Jimmy Song put out because I think it's just telling of the entire situation and perhaps pointing to the desperation that the establishment has against the possible election of Javier. Jimmy wrote on October 15th that, so Argentina has abolished the income tax ahead of its presidential election in a last-ditch attempt to defeat the Libertarian candidate who's leading in the polls. This proves, 1, they're printing money, they really don't need to tax you explicitly, and 2, that inflation itself is a stealth tax that can be imposed without any legislation or transparency. The mechanics of money are going to become way more obvious to people going forward. What did they do to the income tax in Argentina, and do you agree with Jimmy on this?
I mean, it's a last attempt to also gather some votes. Argentina charges like 33% of social security taxes plus up to 35% of income tax if you're a higher earner. And this income tax for employees was set in the year 99. Before we didn't have an income tax for employees, because now it's a lot, right? 33 plus 35, it's a lot. And they put this like saying, okay, like 90% of all the employees won't pay income tax anymore. And some media report, oh yeah, anyone earning like over $2,500 won't pay. But you have to look at the real rate, which is the black market rate. So it's like $1,000, right? We have to check these numbers, of course. But I mean, any Argentine that is making over $1,000 will pay income tax. And right now, the average salary, sadly, of an Argentine is like $200 a month. They are making like $6 every day because the currency has been depreciating a lot. In 2017, an average salary was $1,000. So we've gone downhill. Then we will have to see what happens after this election, because this ticking bomb is going to explode to any of the 3 candidates, right? If Milei does a dollarization, the central bank is bankrupt. It has net negative. I mean, it owes much more than what it has, right? So it cannot cover to give people dollars for their pesos, right? So Milei is counting on the IMF or whatever institution to give him a grant, I say, free money, because Argentina, I don't think, is going to pay that back, right? In order to do this dollarization at a certain price. Otherwise, it's going to go to thousands. I mean, the exchange rate can go to 5,000, 10,000. It's happened before. We're going to review the history of Argentina. It's happened many times before. And the first person to exchange wins. It's a race, right?
A race for the exit.
So the peso will die in that case. And most likely during that boom, let's say, perhaps salaries go to $100 or $50 a month. But even though it's quite painful, it's the only way for Argentina to stop what it's doing, to bounce back. And I believe it's the uphill from there, right?
Yeah, there has to be a reckoning back to economic reality at some point. But if the IMF does not come through on that, which seems like maybe they would not want to in the case of him abolishing the central bank, or at least hurting the central bank through dollarization, what would happen in that case?
I do not know what the IMF will do. Perhaps they are interested in Argentina using the dollar. I'm not sure. Yeah. So perhaps, I mean, the IMF's been, I say it's a grant, it's a gift, because they've been giving Argentina money through the last years, even though it's a populist, socialist country, right? Argentina has a track record of not paying back its debts. And so for me, they are aligned. They must have some kind of interest or request in exchange for that. And if the IMF doesn't do the grant, then it's going to be much worse.
Very tough situation. So let's talk about the history of Argentina and how we got to this point. And I think a good place to start, as you mentioned offline, is where the name Argentina actually comes from.
Sure. Argentina means actually the land of silver, because it comes from argentum, that is the silver element. And the stories tell that the conquistadores, the Spanish that were coming to America, they heard tales about a land of silver in the south, right? And they were trying to find this place, just like they were trying to find El Dorado in North America. And so the river where Buenos Aires is located is called the River of Silver, Rio de la Plata. Plata is silver. And actually, Buenos Aires and that area didn't have any silver. The silver was in Potosí, Bolivia, much further up north. But the name stuck, right? It was the land of silver. So it became Argentina and Rio de la Plata. So I like to say jokingly that even from day one, we were sort of like shitcoiners because we were choosing money number 2, right? Not the best money. But back then, Argentina was like anarchy land, savage land. Some Argentines intellectuals like to call it barbarian lands. We were sieged by the Indians attacking, right? And we were controlled by the Spanish. By 1810, we started to become independent. 1816, the official independence. But then we started fighting each other, just like you did in the United States, over you had Federalists and Unitarians, or that's what we were called, right?
Yeah.
So we were fighting about how decentralized Argentina had to be. And in the end, after decades, the Federalists won. And we had the first constitution in 1853, which was quite classical liberal or quite libertarian. It was the first constitution to recognize private property as a right. And it also said that foreigners that went to Argentina had the same rights as citizens. So this was like the golden ticket for the people of Europe, right? So it was like the American dream. Come to Argentina, make all your money, we're going to tax you a little, all right? And you got to keep all you make. So from that moment on, around 1860 onwards, we started attracting millions of people, a lot of capital from England. The British invested heavily in building railroads, meat packers. Before all of this, like I said, it was anarchy. The cows had started to reproduce freely all throughout the country. There were millions of cows roaming freely. And the cowboys in Argentina called gauchos. Like if they wanted to eat, they just would kill a cow, take the tongue out, cook it, leave the cow there, right? Because abundance. But while this country started to grow rich and rich and rich, we were growing at super fast rates. And by what they say is that by 1910, 1907, we were in the top 7 GDP per capita economies of the world.
Wow.
Like Australia, United States, Canada, Great Britain, Argentina. And when I did the tour with the Bitcoineta through UK, an old man said, oh yeah, I remember like hearing when I was young, the phrase, as rich as an Argentine. It was an expression they had in England, right? An idiom. Because, Argentines, and it's also, like, I believe, the reason why Ayn Rand chose Francisco d'Anconia
right.
the money speech,
Yes,
as an Argentine,
okay.
right? An aristocrat.
Yeah.
But sadly, the millions of people that were coming in immigration brought the common ideas of that time, the popular ideas of that time, socialist ideas, anarcho-communist ideas. And Argentina introduced, popular votation, like anybody could vote. I think it was 1907. And they also, Argentina established public education, free public education. Even to this day, you can go to study to Argentina for free. You can study to be a doctor and you won't pay anything, zero, even if you're a foreigner. So many people from Colombia, anywhere, Brazil, they go to study to Argentina. But the trade-off is that they indoctrinate you in the socialist ideas from being a little kid all through college, right? They even have a 1-year introductory course where all you see is philosophy of state, right? And Keynesianism, all of that. You need to think like that in order to enter college.
Wow. If you are a business owner or manager, you should know these 3 numbers: 36,000, 25, and 1. 36,000 is the number of businesses that have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, which allows you to streamline accounting, financial management, human resources, and more. NetSuite turns 25 years old this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days rather than weeks, and to drive down cost. And finally, 1, because your business is one of a kind. So with NetSuite, you get a customized solution for all your key performance indicators in one efficient system with one source of truth. NetSuite is everything you need all in one place. Right now, you can download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/whatismoney. That's netsuite.com/whatismoney to get your free KPI checklist. Again, netsuite.com/whatismoney. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, iCoin Technology. iCoin has just released a sleek new hardware wallet. Looks like a mini iPhone, a little touchscreen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, no GPS. It's a strictly physically cold hardware wallet. Like I said, it's got a high-res 3-inch touchscreen. It's got a camera for air gapping the wallet. It's got optional Bluetooth compatibility. And it's really a brand new UI, UX experience for a hardware wallet, making it very accessible, easy to use, not intimidating. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like iCoin Wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. Go to iCointechnology.com today and use promo code Bitcoin23 for 30% off of this new sleek hardware wallet. And so, founded as a constitutional republic like the United States, but perhaps it had even stronger respect for private property, it sounds like, and that foreigners had the same rights as citizens.
Yeah, you don't have that private property clause in your constitution.
We're life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which I often think we really screwed up because we inherited a lot of that from the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta was life, liberty, inviolable property. But Magna Carta wasn't a constitutional document necessarily, so I think we messed that up. Because pursuit of happiness, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Property is very specific. And so that led from Argentina, from becoming this land of barbarity, as you're saying, to one of the richest countries in the world, because they installed this classical liberal ideology and enshrined it in a constitution. I think, too, that I've heard, is it Buenos Aires they called the Paris of South America? Is that
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Sure. When you look at the images, back then they were building palaces. They're still there, of course. And in the inside of the country, great estates called estancias. So sometimes you have a mansion in the middle of the farms. And they became great landlords.
And so, it's interesting because then that draws in a lot of immigration, but the immigration brought in the mind virus of socialism, and that seemed to stick in
right.
academia.
The left only sees that the immigrants were poor at first, right? But actually, the sons of the immigrants were super rich. There was an expression called "my son the doctor," but like misspelled, because the parent was super brute, right? And the founding fathers of Argentina actually were sad that most of the immigration we got was from Spain and Italy, and they wanted Swedish, Germans. They wanted from the north, and they got from the south. But well, so they brought these ideas, and well, Argentina was a heavy exporter of foods. It got hit by the First World War, even though we did not participate in the war. Also by the Great Depression of the United States. And so that crisis led to the first military coup. So by 1930, we had the first military coup, military government. And after that, it's a succession of different coups where the military fight each other and take the government, until the most famous figure of Argentinian politics came into power, which is called Juan Domingo Perón. Perón studied to be a military in Europe, and he saw the ascent of Mussolini and Hitler, and he was fascinated, right? Oh, I want to be like them. And Perón had also been a minister of, let's say, the workers, right? The work. And so he realized, oh, it's good to be on the side of the unions and have the workers on your side. So he became like a workers' party leader, right? He came into power through a military coup. A few months later, other military took him out and put him in prison. And he became, his wife became famous, Evita Perón. You can see the musical on Broadway, right? That was made a movie with Madonna that tells the story of a poor little girl from the countryside that goes to Buenos Aires, starts climbing the ladder of men until she reaches the highest position, Perón. And she convinces him not to retire. Perón actually wanted to retire to Paraguay and demand elections and run for presidency. So they did that, and he won as president. But that's the real start of the decline of Argentina. When you see all the metrics, it's like watching the 1971, what the fuck happened there? So it's the same with Argentina. For example, they have some expressions or tellings that you could not walk through the aisles of the central bank because of all the gold that is there. And by the end of Peronism, the central bank was empty, right? He started with inflation, with nationalization of the railroads, the energy production, oil fields. For example, my father was an old boy, 6 years old, and he would have to sing the Peronist anthem every morning in school. They had the photo of Perón and Evita. Everyone had to have in their homes the photo of Perón and Evita.
Wow.
Just like Kim Jong-un today,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And they would choose a woman in each block to be a manzanera, which was like a spy on the neighbors, to see who was Peronist and who wasn't, right?
Wow.
And, well, that lasted until there was another military coup, right, 1955. So Argentina's history has been a disaster. I'm going to show you also some bills I brought from the history of Argentina. So the first bill actually lasted quite long, from 1881 till 1970, right? It was called Peso Moneda Nacional. I don't have it here. That bill, for a few periods, had gold backing. Whenever there was a crisis, they took out the gold backing, until the first central bank, which was 1935, also the year where income tax was established. So it's quite similar to U.S. history, right? So that one died in 1970. 100 pesos of that one became 1 peso ley, one of these, right? 1970. This one lasted until the Falklands War, 83. And the peso got to 1 million peso notes. So people were paying with 1 million peso notes. From this, they took out 4 zeros. So 10,000 of these became 1 peso argentino. Now it was an Argentine peso. It was more patriotic, right? From 83. Here we return to democracy, right? But this president was a disaster in economics, Keynesian, and he destroyed this one in 2 years. This currency died from 83 to 85.
Wow.
They took out 3 zeros. 1,000 of these became an Austral, the Austral plan. When this was launched in 85, this was worth more than $1. 83 cents of an Austral bought you $1. By 89, we had hyperinflation. And that president called elections in advance in order to leave office in advance. And a Peronist won, right? And some people were kind of worried, this Peronist is like a weird man with sideburns. He looked funny. He had inflation at first, but eventually he got an economist from Chicago School, monetarist, right? And they introduced a law, which was called convertibility law, that proposed to do a sort of tether, where 1 peso was backed by $1 at the central bank. And the law said that whenever the exchange rate got to 10,000 Australs for $1, the new currency would kick in, and it did. It became 1 peso convertible peso. This one is actually quite rare because it's 58,000 from the A series. So they had only printed $58,000 up to this point from the 1 peso. And this one, in order to have this, to print this, they need to have $1 saved at the central bank. This scheme lasted 10 years. Now we're going to talk about how it's spectacularly failed later. But it gave Argentinians the first moment of stability for 10 years. That's what
it was pegged to the dollar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I lived as a kid, right? I don't remember much from the Austral, but I do remember this. And Argentina was growing. Argentina was opening up the economy. When I remember telling this story to Germans, and I realized, oh my God, I'm telling the story of like a Soviet Union country because, for example, cars. The same cars were being built since the 60s. Argentina closed importation of cars, all like 7 models, different models you could choose from. If you wanted to get a phone line, you had to ask permission to the government. It would take between 10 and 20 years to get a phone line.
Wow.
So a home that had a phone was worth double of a home without a phone line. Right?
Wow.
So it was like that all around. And this president opened up the economy, allowed importations. He also privatized all the energy, transportation, everything. He put this 1-to-1 dollar peg. And Argentina started climbing. He also, sadly, he raised taxes. And he got into debt. Because prior to this, the government, just as we were talking before about income tax, it made no sense to collect taxes. Because if you're in a hyperinflationist environment, by the time you collect the taxes, they're worthless.
Right.
So why collect taxes, right?
Yeah.
But this government could not do that. So they raised taxes, and they got into a lot of debt. And the mandate of this president was going to run out after 2 mandates. So the next president, on the campaign, he said, I'm going to lower taxes. And I'm saying how I'm going to do it. The first thing he did in office, the first day in power, was to raise taxes. And that's when we introduced the income tax to employees. We did not have that before, right? But it was a lot. I mean, 33% social security taxes, 35% income tax, a lot. So then we went into a depression, an economic recession, very deep. And the vice president resigned. Then, since Argentina was desperate for money, they changed the central bank regulations that force or tell banks in what they have to invest in. And they raised how much they have to invest in Argentine bonds, right? And there was one bank in particular, the largest bank, that even went overboard. Banco Galicia invested, I don't know, much more than what the government demanded. And also, I remember I was a teenager. Whenever you turn on the TVs in the morning, you would see the temperature, the time, and they would tell you what the country risk was. Like they would say to you, it's 350, it's 412, it's 463. And they would say, oh my God, it's never been so high. The country risk is the rate that Argentina pays over the T-bills, the treasury bills, right, in percentage points. So as that number grew larger, it meant that in a certain moment, in a certain point, Argentina was not going to be able to pay the interest on the debt, and it was going to have to default. So we were watching the default coming, right, approaching. So the president called back, hired the Minister of Economy that did this to work as minister, and he came up with the idea of doing a corralito, a little corral, which meant that we woke up one day and we saw the news. Everybody got trapped inside of the banking system. You could not withdraw all of your money. Like if you had $100,000, you could not take it out. They only allow you $250 per week, or pesos, which were the same thing, right? But if you wanted to transact, you could do wire transfers, checks, credit cards, and debit cards. And since they were desperate for money, they introduced a tax on transfers that was paid 0.6% I paid, the sender, 0.6% the receiver, right? So an effort to collect the taxes. So this thing, which was sort of like a CBDC experiment, was called corralito, little corral, like where you put the animals or the babies, corral. And that got the people super pissed off. They were rioting, hitting the pans, cacerolazos was called.
The hitting the pans, can you talk about that, how it would spread through neighborhoods?
Exactly. It's a method of protest where you start in your home, but your neighbor will hear you hitting the pan, and he will start hitting the pan, and it spreads, and you can hear how it spreads all throughout the city, all throughout the country. So it was a classical method of protest, but it got more violent. It got to the point where we started to see riot and looting the shops. I can send you later videos of the lootings and all of that. And we suspect that the opposition party leader was since he had been governor of the province, he was in collusion with the police to allow the looting, right, and everything was breaking. So one Thursday evening, at let's say 8 p.m., the president gave a national address saying that he was putting a military curfew, right? That you could not go out of your home after 8 p.m. until the next morning, that the constitutional rights were suspended, right? So that was on a Thursday. On Friday, the protests got even crazier, and he got the police out with the horses. Around 20 to 25 people died that day, December 20. So by the evening, we all saw on TV, on live, we saw the presidential helicopter landing on the roof of our White House, which is the pink house. And we saw the president climbing on the roof, and getting on the airplane and leaving, heading off. He resigned. We didn't know where he was going, and we did not have a president because the vice president had already resigned 6 months prior. So the country was without president. The next day they chose the president of the Senate, which was the succession line. And the funny thing is that this guy, on his inaugural speech, he declared the default of all the debts, right? To Congress, to deputies and senators. And all these people in Congress were started to cheer. We won, like Argentina.
By defaulting on the debt.
We are champions of the world for defaulting for I don't know how many times. So that president lasted 2 weeks, right? We were still in Corralito. Then we had a succession of 2 more or 3 more presidents in a course of a few hours. And then they chose the opposition party leader as president. And this one too had a famous inaugural speech or phrase that said, whoever deposited dollars will get dollars. Whoever deposited pesos will get pesos. In order to keep everybody quiet and safe. But a few days later, he did not keep that promise. Whoever had deposited dollars, his bank account in dollars went to zero. So all the companies, all the people, all the balances in dollars went to zero. And they did what was called an asymmetric pesification. They multiply that number by 1.4, and they added that as pesos, right? They type it in, right? So if you had $100,000, you got 140,000 pesos. But the market exchange rate back then was 4-1. So if you wanted to buy back those dollars with 140,000 pesos, you got, $35,000.
Wow.
So you lost 65% of all your savings.
So this is a bank bail-in, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. So, I believe through this, right? And that's why Argentines develop like a knowledge of how to survive these situations. And when you see Americans or Europeans that have no idea, this message has not gotten through. I've been touring around, and when I tell the story of Argentina, they say, I never heard of this, right? And someone said, oh, yeah, I understand. Perhaps it was because it was really close to the 9/11 attacks, right? But this story needs to be told because we say in the travels, we come from the future. We are here to warn you on what's going to happen, right?
The canary in the coal mine for central banking and socialist policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So ever since that day, we depeg from the 1-to-1, and we've been inflating our currency away, right? I remember in the 90s, Argentina was quite expensive. It was really easy to make money. Anyone who made a drugstore shop would make, $3,000, $4,000, right? And when we went to the US, I remember as a kid, for us it was like a relief. Oh, how nice to be in a cheaper place. We can buy everything, right? That was my experience. And Argentinians went to Miami, to Orlando. They bought everything because Argentina was very high tax. But now it's the other opposite, completely opposite thing. Right now, Argentinians are making $200 a month, right? So how can they? I believe that they are like the new Venezuelan people, right? It reaches a point where you cannot save anything, and if you don't have money to pay for an air ticket, you're trapped inside of the country.
Wow.
Right?
Have people such a painful multi-decade experience? And so we're talking many currencies were hyperinflated over this time, but they just kept chopping off zeros, issuing a new currency in its place. So just chronic inflation since the 1950s, effectively, when these socialist policies started to get installed. Peronism.
One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world. My thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is much more clear. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from 1,473 human trials conducted over a period of 32 years. So if you're looking to start enhancing your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is a Bitcoin-enabled alternative to legacy health insurance. Now let's face it, legacy health insurance is an absolute scam. Nobody can explain this better than the legendary comedian Chris Rock.
Insurance. You got to have some insurance. You got to. That's an insurance. They shouldn't even call it insurance. They should just call it in case shit. Like, I give a company some money in case shit happens. Now, if shit don't happen, shouldn't I get my money back?
So with CrowdHealth, instead of just paying premiums that you'll never see again, you can hold part of this pool of savings in dollars and in Bitcoin through CrowdHealth. And when you have a health event, you can draw against this pool of communal savings. So go to joincrowdhealth.com/breedlove to learn more or sign up. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Wasabi Wallet. With Wasabi Wallet, you can receive, send, and store Bitcoin privately. In Wasabi Wallet, your transaction history and wallet balance are completely hidden. Wasabi Wallet is easy to use, all of its privacy features are built in by default, and it works with any amount of Bitcoin. Wasabi users can make CoinJoin transactions together with BTC Pay server users or Trezor Suite users. For BTC Pay server users, they can make payments directly inside of a CoinJoin, and for Trezor Suite users, you can make CoinJoins directly on a hardware wallet. These features result in fee savings and security improvements for both sets of users. So go to wasabiwallet.io today to download the state-of-the-art Bitcoin privacy wallet.
Have people figured this out? Like the typical Argentinian, are they now more aware of money and how big of a scam it is? So like, is it easier to orange pill an Argentinian by saying, hey, look, here's a money that government can't corrupt or debase? Does it land easier with them?
There's a portion of the population that learn how to survive. Mm-hmm. And so they either buy dollars or they buy bricks, they buy houses, whatever. Or, there is a large portion of Argentines that got into Bitcoin quite early on, since 2013. We were like having meetups super big. We organized the first Latin American Bitcoin conference in 2013. An Argentine Bitcoin Foundation from 2014. We still have a Bitcoin space, a building that is rented in downtown Buenos Aires, a co-working that is still there since 2014. In 2018, we did La Bitcoineta to travel around Latin America. So the Argentine Bitcoin ecosystem has been quite early on, because I know a friend that got into Bitcoin because in 2011 or so, the president, a woman, Christina Kirchner, she introduced an exchange clamp, like you cannot freely buy dollars anymore. Back then, if you want to buy dollars, you had to log into our IRS website, input the amount you want to buy, and the website would only tell you yes or no. It wouldn't tell you why. And it wouldn't tell you which amount you were going to get a yes, right? So you had to try. And some people got rejected and some people got approved, right? So most likely, I know if you're a opposition or whatever, they don't like you, you get rejected. And this created a gap between the official dollar rate and a newly created black market rate, which we call blue dollar. Back then it was like 4 pesos official, 6 pesos black market. So this gap meant that, for example, if you had a credit card, you could go to next door Uruguay, next country. You go to a casino with your credit card, you buy casino chips. Immediately you take the casino chips and sell them for dollar bills. You take the dollar bills to Argentina. And in Argentina, we have these places where you can, they are like the black market operations. We call them caves, cuevas. A cueva could be anything. It could be like an antique shop. I once changed dollars in the guy that does your keys, right? He's also a cueva. And you can exchange peso to dollar with him. So yeah, that's where you exchange and you get 50% over back then, more money. So with 50% more pesos, you pay down your credit card and you can do it again and you can do it again, right? And it all extracts value from the central bank, right? We call this loop doing the rulo, which means curve, right? So everybody in Argentina is trying to do the rulo, right? And then the government is trying to impose restrictions on how to stop it, and then they find new ones to do it, right? It's always like a cat and mouse chase. But I also say that it's a way for corruption, because if you're with the government, you get access to the official dollar rate. And if you're not with the government, you don't get access, right? So right now, I have to check this around, but the official dollar rate is like 360 pesos. And the black market blue dollar is 1,200, right?
Wow.
So it's there, 1,200, 368. So you might say, oh, that's a huge gap. It's almost like 3 times over, right? So the arbitrage opportunity is amazing. Well, in order to stop that, they introduce taxes on top of your credit card, or on top of the $200 they allow you to buy each month. So it's not that you can buy just the 200 at the official price. You have to pay 200. I mean, you get 200, but you pay like 65% tax.
Wow.
Right? Now the gap is so wide that it's still profitable. So right now, if I take my Argentine credit card and I spend money here in Lugano, Switzerland, the Argentine central bank is subsidizing my purchases, like 20 to 25% discount, right, for using my Argentine credit card. And it's all being paid by the impoverishment of the Argentine people.
Wow.
I mean, it's paid through inflation.
Right.
It's going to be paid on Monday, when we don't know what's going to happen with the exchange rates on Monday.
This is just a good vignette or a good story of how the corruption of money just actually destroys social cohesion at every level. And you can't, the answer is never price fixing, right? You can never pass a law to try and force fit market dislocations, because what happens is black markets spin up, right? And so, yeah, it's incredible that just ignorance of economics can lead to such disastrous outcomes in a country repeatedly over time. And so is this is the wave that's pushing Javier into notoriety, right? That someone's actually talking about a real solution to this problem? Is the popular support for Javier kind of a reflection of maybe the lessons people have learned throughout this painful history?
Sure. I mean, the young people have only experienced inflation. The people that were born in 2000, they only saw inflation all through their lives, and most of their lives they've been living through the Kirchner era, like from the Nestor Kirchner and his wife, right? But also, I do not know if it is only ignorance. I think that is that they do not want to know, or they pretend that they do not know, because these Keynesian ideas actually allow you to steal a lot. For example, Macri was a president from 2015 to 2019, the only period where we did not have Kirchnerism in the last 20 years, right? So from the left, from the point of view of the left, he's like a right-wing whatever, right? But he kept on with the same Keynesian ideas, so inflation rose with him. But we say, some libertarians like to say that he's a Kirchnerista with good manners. Like because he's blonde and blue eyes, right? And he doesn't swear, but he has the same ideas. But he got Argentina out of the default in, I don't know if it was 2016 or what year. And the IMF granted him and started granting him billions of dollars. And this is why I say that politicians, the real reason why they want to regulate the economy is because that inside information lets you steal the money. How? For example, during Macri's term, there was a period of months where the exchange rate would not go up. It was being suppressed at 20 pesos per dollar. There was no law that said you had to keep it at 20. Why 20? Why not 19? Why not 21? But it was kept there, right? With the money from the IMF. At the same time, the Argentine bonds in pesos were paying 30% per year, right? So if you know that the exchange rate is not changing, staying flat, what you're actually getting is 30% yield on dollars. Because you can sell your dollars for pesos, invest in Argentine bonds, they go up 30%, then you sell those and buy back the dollars, and you got 30% more dollars. So if you're in government and you're using the IMF money, and you know how long you're going to be suppressing the price, you can call a friend, right, or your lawyer or whatever, and say, oh, leverage up, like do a 10x, do a 100x, whatever. Because we, in Argentina, we have an expression, it's called having the cow tied up, which means tener la vaca atada means that you know for sure a certain outcome, right?
Right.
So this way, you can steal billions of dollars legally without nobody noticing or doing anything in the justice. But it's all being paid by inflation and impoverishment of people.
Wow. Yeah, so you could almost say that, and I would broaden this to really all, I know I'm a bit extreme in my anarcho-capitalist views, but I think all regulation is essentially to that end, right? To create these arbitrage opportunities for insiders, right? They have insider information. We see this a lot in the US with politicians radically outperforming all the hedge funds in their investment portfolios. You know, their salaries are a few $100,000 a year, but their net worth goes from 10 million to hundreds of millions in the course of their career, all trading on this insider information. What's the analogy I read online? It's like we don't let athletes bet on the games that they play in because they have the ability to influence the outcome, right? Exactly. So why would we let politicians bet on the companies and industries that they pass laws on that can also influence the outcome, right? It's a rigged game.
Exactly.
And the answer, of course, is classical liberal principles, true libertarian ideology.
That's the only thing that can stop the theft.
Yes.
Not to intervene in the economy.
Right.
Take the money out of the state.
Yes.
Bitcoin.
Yes. So, this is such a big inflection point that I hope people's minds can come to, is like there's not a law that's going to fix it. There's not a new president or a new political leader or political party that's going to fix it. It's getting rid of the regulations, getting rid of the arbitrage opportunities for insiders. That's what allows people to prosper and flourish economically.
Exactly. To create a market where you cannot influence it, so you cannot
exactly
have this
decentralization, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Ooh, that is quite the journey, and I hope that people will look to this history of Argentina as a canary in the coal mine for where economies are headed.
Yeah, because what I see from these travels is that Europeans are just waking up. Last year I went to a conference in Madrid, in Spain, and the Spanish were alarmed by the 10% inflation or 15, 20, because they always lie, right, the numbers. And they've started to organize doing meetups in each different city. Also the Germans are doing this, the British, the Italians, the French. And why now, right? It's because of the inflation that they are seeing right now. But still, this is just starting. I mean, we are like 20 years ahead or 25 years ahead with the history. And I hope that with Javier, Argentina goes through the deep bottom and goes up back again. And it might be in a better situation because you passed the worst, it's behind, right? And it's all uphill from there. Just like other countries like, El Salvador be in that situation. So yeah, why stay in countries that are going downhill?
Yeah.
Because it really affects you. You were talking about this. When you're living a decline for 20 years, and each year that comes is worse than the previous one, and the next one is worse, and the next one is worse. It's like life becomes a bad experience, right?
Yeah, of course.
It really gets to you. So
It's hopeless.
I really felt it when I came a few months ago to Europe. You start seeing the change in you. Like before coming here, I know I'm always worried about being stolen, right? Or the energy of the people. They are like, how do you call it? Well, I don't know the word. When you have a revenge against someone, but not revenge. It's like resentful, right? In Argentina, people are like resentful because they're being taught that the reason why they are in this situation is because there are rich people that are raising the prices.
Yes,
and it's the supermarket owner.
Right.
So they turn people against each other.
Yes.
Right.
It's the same in the U.S., right? It's like tax the rich, the billionaires are the problem, and that's not the case. You don't want to blame entrepreneurs, right? People that are actually solving problems. It's people that are stealing from society and citizens through these opaque means, right? People don't understand that inflation is theft or taxation is theft.
And that
or
message you're
regulation is
telling
theft.
is what Javier has been teaching.
Yes.
So now he's changing the discourse, and you might get into a taxi cab in Argentina, and the taxi cab driver will say, "Oh yeah, we have to close the central bank."
Yeah.
Because they're the culprits. That's great.
Let's see, I don't want to say the mind virus, but the idea, right? The liberal ideology is spreading again. And I would like to think that some of that has to do with just the emergence of Bitcoin, right? That it has people having the conversation. It is taking people into the annals of economic history and science. And even if it's not the masses doing it per se, there are a few, like Javier, doing the work and then broadcasting the message. And then the taxi drivers saying, hey, let's abolish the central bank.
Exactly.
So that's very hopeful. Let's talk a little bit about Bitcoineta, what you're doing there. You have a fleet of vehicles, I guess, and you're traveling all over the world to help.
Currently there are 4 Bitcoinetas in the world. In Bitcoin Amsterdam, we announced the 5th one, which is going to be for Ghana and West Africa. Trezor is going to be putting some money there there's a Bitcoin community called Cowries in Ghana. So the idea is to have this decentralized project where if you're in the United States and you want to build a Bitcoineta, or you're in India and you want to make one, well, you can come in contact with us. We see if we share the values, right? We can begin to populate the world with Bitcoinetas. So the idea with the Bitcoinetas is to travel around, going to the small cities and all the countries, organizing meetups, giving intro talks to Bitcoin. When there are people that already know about Bitcoin, we go into deep philosophical debates and we can talk about technical aspects philosophy, economics. The Bitcoineta carries books, so we have books by almost all the authors that we can. Carries hardware wallets, T-shirts, whatever. And so, the idea is to spread the message of Satoshi, right? Like we are like evangelists traveling around. Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing team, right? It doesn't have an owner or a CEO. So we have to take the matter into our own hands, right? And teach people why Bitcoin and not crypto. What's the difference? Why crypto is more similar to fiat than to Bitcoin, right? This is still into the culture. We need to change that culture, right? Even though it takes time, doesn't matter. Perhaps it will take decades.
It's all worth it in the end.
Exactly.
That's for sure. Ariel, thank you for this. This has been a fascinating journey through Argentinians' monetary history. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. You can find us at Bitcoineta, Bitcoineta at EU, Bitcoineta EU in Twitter. And I am at Ariel Aguilar on Twitter.
Awesome. We'll put links to that in all the show notes. Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, Robert.